Election Day is next Tuesday, and there are lots of important positions to be filled here in Tompkins County.
Tonight, we've got all you need to know on how to safely cast your vote come next week.
Plus, we hear from candidates and community members with their ideas for issues that you care about.
And we'll have all the information you need as we close in on Election Day.
From ICTV News, this is Election Center 2020.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Election Center 2020. I'm Tyler Cunnington.
And I'm Melissa Spady. As we gear up for Election Day, voting is already underway here in New York and around the country. Reporter Skylar Eagle is outside Ithaca Town Hall, where early voting began yesterday. Skylar?
That's right, early voting began yesterday in New York State, and it will continue until November 1st. The Board of Elections has been preparing for this for months, and I got the chance to speak to some county officials on how you can vote early here in Tompkins County.
If they are a registered voter in Tompkins County during early voting, they can go to either of the two early voting sites in Tompkins County. One is at the Town of Ithaca Town Hall, the corner of East Buffalo and North Tioga Streets, and the other is at the Crash Fire Rescue Conference Room up at the airport.
Early voting records are being shattered nationwide. So far, a record-breaking 35 million people have voted early in the 2020 election. The rise in voter participation is due to a nationwide push to register voters and get them to the polls. The Tompkins County Democratic Committee has been working to encourage people to vote and volunteer to phone bank for candidates running in Tompkins County.
So what the committee traditionally does, and we'll be doing this year, is what's called GOTV, Get Out the Vote. And what that involves is extensive phone banks. If you know what phone banks are, it's getting people together to call voters from registered voter lists, sometimes targeted to particular voters.
IC Votes is also working to get voters to the polls, focusing more on students and social media. This is the first presidential election for thousands of students nationwide, and members of Gen Z are expected to make up 10% of all eligible voters.
So we've made sure that we're getting out every single early voting, absentee, and registration and voting deadline for every single U.S. state to make sure that we're covering our bases and meeting every single student's needs.
Registered voters looking to vote absentee can mail their ballot or drop it off at any polling place or the Board of Elections up until Election Day.
Now, if you're looking to get your vote counted as soon as possible, your best bet is to vote early and in person, because in Tompkins County, absentee ballots won't be counted until November 10th. Reporting for Election Center in Ithaca, I'm Skylar Eagle.
Thank you, Skylar. And a reminder, early voting is taking place at the Crash Fire Rescue and the Ithaca Town Hall up until November 1st.
The race to fill the 125th seat in the New York State Assembly is heating up after longtime Assembly member Barbara Lifton announced she would not be seeking a 10th term.
After winning a highly contested Democratic primary in June, Anna Kellis is facing off against Republican and Libertarian candidate Matthew McIntyre. Kellis, a legislator from Tompkins County, picked up the Democratic and Working Families nominations and is campaigning on a green workforce platform.
But this pandemic has blown the track to pieces. So what track do we want to put back together? We have an opportunity to leave behind us all of the systems that don't work because they're already broken. Let's build what will actually address the fact that we are in the middle of a phenomenal climate crisis.
Meanwhile, Republican and Libertarian candidate Matthew McIntyre is a Marine veteran from Cortland County running in support of libertarian values and smaller government.
Yeah, so I'm looking to redo our healthcare industry, not insurance. Redo the industry so that we can go and provide a more affordable and transparent system that we currently don't have.
McIntyre has no experience in public office, but has served as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Cortland County. McIntyre disagrees with Kells on a mandatory vaccine for COVID-19, as he believes a vaccine would be unsafe given the virus giving a 99% survival rate.
All right, and what we need to remember too is that the CDC actually classifies vaccinations as a necessary and unavoidable risk.
In their second time facing off, House Representative Tom Reed and Democratic challenger Tracy Metrano have had nothing short of a chaotic campaign. The race has been heating up across the southern tier, and throughout the election season, Metrano has called on Tom Reed to participate in 5 different debates. Reed has slammed Metrano, suggesting that the idea is excessive, as the presidential election only has 3 debates scheduled.
Here to break it all down is political analyst Dan Orlick.
That's right, guys. The race to represent the 23rd Congressional District has been contentious, with both Reed and Metrano running fierce campaigns. These two faced off in 2018, with Reed winning the district by 8.4 percentage points. This was Reed's slimmest margin of victory since 2012, and Metrano believes she can get over the hump this year, so to speak. This year, Metrano has repeatedly called for debates, and she finally got her wish with a short debate against Representative Reed on Wednesday. She believes a higher Democratic turnout, as well as her beliefs on using government funding to stimulate the economy, provide health care for all, and combat climate change, will lead her to be the new representative for New York's 23rd District. She's really counting on a high turnout from Ithaca, the biggest Democratic hub for the region, to be able to carry her to victory over Tom Reed, the longtime incumbent. Back to you, Tyler.
Thanks, Dan. Now, Tracy Metrano entered the political realm after the 2016 election, supporting Joe Biden's healthcare plan and advocating for comprehensive immigration reform and furthering civil rights legislation.
Reed, on the other hand, has made his reputation known that he is the most accessible congressman. He's hosted over 250 town halls. Reed currently is a member of the Ways and Means Committee and a co-chair on the Bipartisan Problem-Solving Caucus in the House.
Earlier this week, Reed held a Clean Up Ithaca and Stand Up to Extremism event at the Tompkins County GOP headquarters after the office was vandalized.
We will stand with you, and today starts the rise of the new Republican Party that will stand and exercise our rights and not be intimidated by extremists and radicals. And we will stand firm with our rights and everyone's rights to express themselves.
Reed and Metrano first debated on October 21st and will face off a second time this Tuesday.
And as for the New York State Senate, 3 different races will appear on the ballot in Tompkins County, the 51st, the 54th, and the 58th districts. In the 58th district, incumbent Thomas O'Mara is facing off against Democratic challenger Leslie Danks Burke. O'Mara is currently assigned to 6 Senate committees, running on the platforms of environmental conservation, decreasing taxes, and protecting gun rights. Meanwhile, Burke, who has no prior experience in government, previously worked as an attorney and was behind the launch of the Planned Parenthood of the Southern Finger Lakes. She is running on the platforms of improving education and improving public transportation.
In the 51st district, 3 candidates are vying for the seat in the district spanning from the Hudson Valley all the way up to the Finger Lakes. Democrat Jim Barber, spending much of his life as a farmer, is advocating for the agriculture industry and improving healthcare in rural areas.
Both would recognize the importance of that local economy effect of spending all your dollars locally really multiplies the impact. And we have plentiful water and good soils.
Republican Peter Obercracker is running for the seat in hopes of replacing current Senator James Seward, who announced earlier this year that he would not be reseeking election after serving 17 terms on the state Senate. Obercracker supports small businesses and improving the local economy. He opposes bail reform and vows to fully support police and emergency personnel. Obercracker did not respond to ICTV News' request for comment. And Timothy O'Connor will appeal on your ballot, but not running as a regular campaign, but rather as a write-in for the Libertarian Party. O'Connor has based his campaign on the fact that he is not a career politician, and he has wanted to reinvent the economic future of upstate New York.
The most important issues in Senate District 51 is the lack of economic opportunity and how the state has mismanaged its fiduciary responsibility to its constituents. Taxes are too high, regulations are too oppressive.
And in the 54th district, covering the town of Lansing, Republican Pamela Helming and Democrat Shauna O'Toole are vying for the seat that spans from the southern Finger Lakes up to Lake Ontario.
And voters in Tompkins County will be seeing a few races for judicial positions on their ballots. 2 candidates are vying for spots on the 6th district of the New York Supreme Court. Democrat Elizabeth Barry and Republican Brian Burns are looking to fill the 2 open seats on the bench. And in the race for Tompkins County Court Judge, Democrat John Rowley is running unopposed. If elected, Rowley will be entering his third term as a county judge, and in the position, Judge Rowley will be responsible for prosecuting all crimes committed within the county. Rowley is currently a multi-bench judge for the county, family, and surrogate courts.
Meanwhile, in Ithaca, 2 candidates are running for Ithaca City Court Judge, one on the Democratic line and the other on the Working Families Party. Incumbent and Democrat Seth Peacock has been endorsed by Ithaca Mayor Savante Myrick and was the first Black judge elected to the court. He is currently responsible for civil cases and minor criminal cases in Ithaca. Previously, Peacock has been banned from receiving assignments from 2 local courts due to missing trials. Working Families Representative Dan Johnson has worked as both a defense and prosecuting attorney and has 14 years of experience in drug courts. He is running on a commitment to fair treatment and wants to increase the use of science and data in judicial decisions.
Meanwhile, Tompkins County District Attorney Matthew Van Houten is running unopposed this year, securing the Democrats' second term.
Tompkins County has been had a local criminal justice system that is very much progressive in the sense that we focus on alternatives to incarceration. Jail is a last resort.
Van Houten is campaigning on increasing community outreach and improving systematic bias in the criminal justice system. And campaigning during the coronavirus pandemic has looked a little bit different this year. ICTV's Jordan Broking takes a look at how campaigning has changed during the pandemic.
Like so many other events in society, political campaigns have had to adjust to a new normal. For Anna Kellis and other candidates across the country, this meant lessening physical and personal contact with potential voters.
You know, many times people would invite me in and say, all right, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee or, a cup of tea. There were a couple times even like, come in, let me feed you and let's have a real conversation. There's no replacement for that.
Due to restrictions on large gatherings and social distancing guidelines, campaigns have had to come up with new ways to engage with their voters. Recently, the Biden campaign has turned to virtual events featuring some celebrities, as well as drive-in rallies and canvas lunches similar to the one held by Dr. Jill Biden earlier this week. The Trump campaign also turned to virtual events over the summer, before President Trump returned to the campaign trail to hold fewer, larger-scale rallies across the country. While the pandemic has brought a new sense of impersonalization to politics, Don Beechler says he does not think political campaigns are becoming impersonal.
People enjoy the experience of being with thousands of people who agree with them. I would say, absent COVID, no, I think people still like being personally there, and sort of like going to a concert, only it's free.
Now, during this time, social media has become an extremely valuable resource for keeping in touch with family and friends. However, some experts are saying that politicians are using it to become more personable with their constituents. According to a study by professors from UPenn, Carnegie Mellon, and Pampoon Fraba University, the content posted on social media is more personal and includes information about politicians' lives and activities outside politics. Cal says she's been updating her social media pages daily with updates on the coronavirus to her supporters. Beechler, however, thinks that campaigns have not benefited from the use of social media, comparing that platform to cable news.
It's a lot like cable news. Everyone stays in their own echo chamber.
Beechler has studied campaigns and elections for nearly 50 years. He predicts that once everyone has the coronavirus vaccine, campaigns will return to their original personal events. For Election Center, I'm Jordan Broking.
Thanks, Jordan. Many candidates have focused their campaigns on issues that are directly affecting residents in Tompkins County. Our reporter Noah Pincus spoke with voters on what issues matter to them the most.
As the saying goes, it's not just about who is on the ballot, but what is on the ballot. ICTV is here to find out what's motivating early voting Ithacans. So what issue is most important to you?
Democracy itself is at stake. We don't want, an authoritarian regime in charge.
Healthcare to be extended to more people and be made more readily available.
Environment.
And why is that?
Because if we don't address the climate change, we're going to lose our whole lives.
Getting Trump out of the presidency.
Getting rid of Trump.
Our democracy is the most important thing to salvage, but climate change.
And what about you?
I would have to say the same thing. And on the note of democracy, the unity of our country is really important to me, and I think that's lacking right now.
Having a government in which love, respect, support are
the prevailing attitude, and this is what guides policy decisions.
And you?
Yeah, I think the same thing, leading with love, like we have in the school district. That's the policy within the school district. I think that should be a nationwide policy.
For Election Center, I'm Noah Pincus.
Thank you, Noah. The economy has been a major focal point throughout the year. The recession caused by the coronavirus pandemic has left people unemployed across the country and right here in Tompkins County.
Reporter Jack Culkin is here joining us tonight. So Jack, with the economy being such a focal point going into this election, what have been some of the impacts we've seen here in Tompkins County?
Yeah, Tyler, residents here in Ithaca have definitely been feeling the effects. When the city went into a virtual lockdown back in April, the unemployment rate nearly tripled, hitting a staggering 10.1%. Now, while this unemployment rate may seem detrimental to an economy like Ithaca's, the Ithaca Area Economic Development President, Heather McDaniel, says they're determined to get people back to work.
We've got about 10,000 people that have filed for unemployment claims since the second week in March. And really our aim is to get 200 people back to work a week between now and the end of the year to try and make a dent in that unemployment rate.
Some good news though, of all local areas surveyed across the state this past September, the city of Ithaca had the lowest unemployment rate, hopefully a sign of an economic recovery.
And we found that, across the board, pretty much every sector was accessing PPP in pretty significant levels. It was really a lifesaver for many companies here in Tompkins County.
And many of the issues here in Tompkins County are also taking center stage across the country. We are just 9 days away from the election, and the race for the White House is heating up.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump have been battling head-to-head for the future of our nation. Our reporter Emily Hung spoke with Tompkins County voters on what they hope to see from the presidential election.
This year's presidential election is bizarre, wonky, and unconventional, in the words of Ithaca residents.
With Trump and the rallies that he's had and the lack of social distancing and the lack of masks, even with the science proving that we are in the middle of a pandemic, we haven't even gotten out of the first wave, and it's just very frightening to see how easily we disregard human safety, but yet we use that to uphold the principles that we talk so highly about. With Joe Biden, I'm hearing a lot of settle for Biden, and what amazes me is that it comes from the same people who claim that we should never be settling. So why would we portray that image that settling is okay?
Residents also remain uncertain around the potential outcome of this election.
I have no idea how it's going to come out. I certainly hope Mr. Trump gets reelected because I like his policies and his programs, and the fact that he made a bunch of promises and he's worked very hard to keep his promises, and he's kept an awful lot of them. He had really, really turned the economy in a good direction. The fact that there was the lowest Black unemployment in history before COVID hit was an amazing thing.
For resident Christine Barksdale, though, her safety is a priority.
I'm voting for Joe Biden. I do not want Trump to win. I think that for myself, he's dangerous. I was driving to Horseheads 2 days ago, and there were all these Trump signs next to Confederate flags. And I just thought, that's why this is not okay. This is not okay in this country. This is not okay today. It doesn't make me feel safe.
For Election Center, I'm Emily Hung.
Thank you, Emily. Now, many key issues are defining the presidential election and how voters are making their decisions at the polls. ICTV's Mark Scaglione is joining us now with some of these important matters.
Tonight, the final push to Election Day, with key issues taking center stage. With just 9 days to go, U.S. intelligence officials releasing new information confirming Russian and Iranian election interference.
We would like to alert the public that we have identified that 2 foreign actors, Iran and Russia, have taken specific actions to influence public opinion relating to our elections. We will not tolerate foreign interference in our elections.
The candidate seizing one final opportunity to speak to the American voters.
We're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard.
I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
On the ballot, key issues including health care, the economy, and climate change, both candidates making their arguments to voters.
A transition from the oil industry, yes.
Perhaps most important, the coronavirus.
It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner.
The former vice president supporting making masks mandatory, along with expanding rapid testing nationwide. The president, on the other hand, praising the progress of treatments and vaccine developments, claiming a vaccine could be delivered within weeks.
But it will be by the end of the year, but I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
This comes as the FDA officially approved remdesivir, a coronavirus treatment, the exact drug President Trump took while hospitalized with COVID-19. Now, while the future of many issues in this country looks uncertain, come Tuesday, we should have a better idea of which direction the country could move. Alyssa?
Thank you, Mark. And now, breaking down potential outcomes of the electoral map, presidential election analyst Jeremy Goldstein is joining us now with how the Electoral College could play out for both Biden and Trump.
Yeah, that's right, Alyssa and Tyler. As we know, it takes 270 electoral votes to win. And with some swing states still up in the air tonight, it could play out to be a tight race to get to that 270 mark. And I'm going to break this down candidate by candidate. Let's start with Vice President Biden. I think the three states that are most important for him to win, besides Florida, are Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Why? Well, states are worth 55 delegates combined, and they're all leaning Democrat. If Vice President Biden is able to take the edge in all three of those states and keep his lead, he should have an easier time winning this election. These are three states that Secretary Clinton failed to win back in 2016. So Donald Trump is going to have a severe disadvantage if he can't win those back. And along with Florida, that would be 84 delegates that Vice President Biden would have in his favor that Secretary Clinton did not back in 2016. Let's shift gears to Donald Trump now. I think it's evident that a lot of these swing states are now leaning blue, unlike they were back in 2016. So with President Trump here, you got to take a look at the swing states that are most important for him that could help him win re-election. That's Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and North Carolina. Now you might be asking, why is Iowa on that list? It was hard red back in 2016, but now Joe Biden's been neck and neck in the polls with him in that state. And that brings me back to why this uphill battle is huge for Donald Trump, because these are states that Trump won in a landslide last election and is now struggling to take those back. It's an uphill battle for President Trump, but it's anybody's election. And we'll be watching the map over the next few days as we close in on Election Day.
Across the nation, a number of key races in the Senate are beginning to narrow as we inch closer to Election Day. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell leads in the polls against Democratic challenger Amy McGrath from Kentucky. McGrath has kept the race tight, however, as McConnell leads by just 10 points as of this weekend.
And in South Carolina, one of the most contentious Senate races in the country is underway. While most statewide polling has shown incumbent Lindsey Graham in the lead, recent polls indicate a slight lead for Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison after a massive spending boost on advertising.
And up north in Maine, Republican incumbent Susan Collins is neck and neck with Democratic challenger Sarah Gideon. Collins is the last Republican senator in New England and has been trailing in the polls in recent weeks.
Democrats need to maintain their 12 seats up for re-election and gain 4 victories to flip the Senate, while Republicans are hoping to maintain and expand on their majority of 53 senators. And with the coronavirus pandemic still raging on across the United States, voting and how to cast your ballot has become a contentious issue leading up to the election.
And so far, upwards of 35 million people have voted early, a higher amount than we've ever seen before.
And the debate over mail-in voting has taken center stage this year, with 27 states expanding voter access to mail-in voting over safety concerns following the pandemic.
In 9 of those states, registered voters were automatically mailed a ballot. California, Washington, D.C., and Vermont, 3 of those states or locations implementing this process for the first time. In states like New York, the process for obtaining a ballot is a bit more difficult. Unlike in 34 other states, voters in New York were unable to cite the coronavirus as a reason to vote absentee. 8 other states have joined New York in adopting a similar policy.
All of this comes as earlier this year, President Trump expressed his disapproval for expanding relief funding to the United States Postal Service. The president has said that voting by mail could lead to massive voter fraud, and as many states expanded absentee options. And here in Tompkins County, our reporter John Ficari spoke with voting officials on how voting by mail has changed this year.
The most common way Americans use their right to vote is going to different voting locations across the country on Election Day. But this year, due to COVID-19, it'll look a little different. They'll be voting this way through mail-in ballots and absentee ballots way before Election Tuesday. In most recent years, the primary usage of mail-in ballots has risen, with the 2016 presidential election seeing approximately 33 million ballots cast by postal vote. About a quarter of all ballots counted, according to the Wall Street Journal. I spoke with Tompkins County Board of Elections Democratic Commissioner Stephen DeWitt to discuss the mail-in ballot process and the numbers expected this election cycle.
There's an application process. Now, true, it's been very liberalized this year because of the COVID-19 through a paper application process, but they can fax it to us. They can scan it as an attachment. They don't need a signature. They can, even though we haven't had it, they can call us up on the phone and, we'll ask them the questions we need answers to.
Due to COVID-19, the process for voting via absentee or mail has become more streamlined, and that has led to already projected highs for the amount of mail-in ballots that have been recorded in Tompkins County.
In 2016, I think we ended up with about 3,800 came back out of about 4,200 applied for. This year, we've had about 14,000 have been applied for. We've received over 7,000 back already.
For those deciding to vote in person in Tompkins County, you're advised to wear a mask. And at the voting locations, there will be PPE stations provided. For Election Center on ICTV, I'm John Ficari.
Thank you, John. In the midst of racial tension and a global pandemic, many have been questioning what defines our nationality, asking what it means to be an American. Our reporter Emily Hung spoke with Tompkins County residents looking at how their ideas fit into this conversation.
What do you think about when you're asked, "Are you an American?" Well, residents here in Ithaca have differing opinions on what the American identity means to them.
To me, American is really the summation of, I guess, if you had an ethnic identity for me, that's what it would be, because I came about as a consequence of the melting pot that is this country.
In a survey by the Washington Post, 90% of respondents said treating people equally is a very important aspect of being an American, and just over 80% said accepting people from different racial backgrounds is crucial as well.
To me, being American isn't being patriotic. I wouldn't tell someone to, honor a country that doesn't honor their life. If you're seeing your own race shot in the street for their race, or you've witnessed your friends' lives destroyed by rape and the man that did it not persecuted, I understand why you could not be patriotic. I mean, it's hard to support a government system that doesn't support you.
Over the course of this past half year, Ithaca has seen racial justice and Back the Blue rallies, as well as Black Lives Matter protests. The city is just a microcosm of larger movements happening across the country.
I hear people that they're actually hearing and listening.
Still, Lucente believes there needs to be a greater respect for liberty at both the national and local level.
Locally, I would say it's been very bad, and it's been a very authoritarian environment with people being so gung-ho about the COVID restrictions. And to me, what America is about, what separates this country and what makes this country great is liberty. And to the extent that we sacrifice those things to authoritarian policies such as lockdown and such as forced masking, the more that happens, the more we will lose what it is to be America.
For Election Center, I'm Emily Hung.
Thank you for that, Emily. And that's going to be all we have for you tonight here on Election Center.
Be sure to tune into our live coverage of Election Night with Madison Moore on all ICTV social media platforms and ICTV.org.
I'm Tyler Cunnington. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Melissa Spady. Stay safe, go vote, and have a good night.